Hello everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing fantastic. That you're all having a great day. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. I slightly just woke up, so if I sound a little crazy, I don't know what to really say. We have a pretty optimistic, more or less pretty optimistic news day. It feels like there's a bit of a shift in the market per se. I can't really put my finger on it. But there's a lot of news about, once again, where people think the market's going, and none, thank goodness, has turned sour or weird in the last couple of weeks or so, despite prices not acting as they should have. Probably the most popular portion of the news that we have out there is from Mr. Michael Saylor. During his appearance at a Prague event, Michael Saylor detailed his colorful journey with Bitcoin, reflecting on initial skepticism about Bitcoin and eventual embracement. He confessed that when he first encountered Bitcoin in 2013, he saw it as a novelty with potential ties to, can't say that word, to things that people do online, which led him to initially dismiss it. Consequently, Saylor missed an early opportunity when Bitcoin was around $892. Eventually purchasing Bitcoin at $9,500, he said, "I got the price I deserved," which I don't know why that's becoming such a thing right now where everyone's saying that online. We were talking about that months ago. I told you my friend sent me a message and said, we all buy Bitcoin at the price we deserve. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of dark and cryptic. And I'm seeing it everywhere, everyone's saying that over and over. Michael Saylor is in the news today, basically announcing that he thinks that Bitcoin is going to $8 million per coin. Saylor highlighted that despite Bitcoin's significant appreciation over the years, skepticism remains prevalent. He pointed out a hypothetical scenario where Bitcoin reaches $950,000 per coin and still encounters naysayers expecting it to drop, missing out on what could potentially ascend to $8 million per coin. How he got to the number 8 and not number 5 and not a $10 million, I can't tell you exactly why he said. Maybe it was just something that was floating around in his head. Right, very popular news. As far as skepticism, this remains everywhere. I told you so many times, there are people within crypto who are constantly skeptical. I've had conversations, years ago, with people about Ethereum. I was like, yeah, at some point we're going to have a $10,000 Ether, and people go, no, but we can't get there because Ethereum's market cap would be too high. And I'm like, no, we could totally get there. It's kind of this. I won't mention the coin, but there's another coin that I firmly believe is going to $1. There's nothing in my mind that tells me otherwise. I'm buying this coin all the time. But when you discuss it with people, they remain skeptical because they say, well, the market cap can't go there. And I think I've been in this market long enough to know that literally anything is possible. People said that Dogecoin could never hit 1 cent. It was never going to 1 cent. I heard XRP is never going to $1. I remember, I've been in the market so long. I remember saying that it was mathematically impossible for Bitcoin to ever go to $10,000. So I think that just remains across all different things. I've told people years ago, even when I was into mutual funds and stocks, or even just generalized investing, telling people to invest and put their money away, and people telling me, well, if it was so great, why isn't everyone doing it? And it's that kind of thing. Now, once again, not to sound crazy or whatever, and it's getting kind of annoying that I also have to even frame things like that. When I talk to a lot of people about cryptocurrencies and the crypto market and Bitcoin's price and Ethereum and portfolios and how much money there is, like all these kinds of things put together, I've had to like always start my sentences with like, not to sound crazy, or I know this is a bit weird, whenever I talk about where I personally think that Bitcoin is going to go in price. If we continue on this path, if we continue on this trajectory, if we continue seeing this level of accumulation and what have you, so on and so forth, we will at some point get to a multi-million-dollar Bitcoin. But I think this, once again, I think the skepticism remains in every market. When we got to 10,000, the idea of a $20,000 Bitcoin, if you were here back then, didn't make any sense. When you're at $20,000 and you fall back down to $3,000 per coin, as Bitcoin did in 2018, I believe it was, the idea of a $70,000 Bitcoin just doesn't seem believable. So it's constantly this kind of thing that we're all floating around, but everyone thought this was absolutely incredible news. It's just, we will always have these people around us. We will always have people who believe that things aren't possible or can't be done and this isn't going to. And then when it finally ends up happening, they're still skeptical about the next step after it. It happens in sports. It happens every single place. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, even more so, not to like pat rich people on the back. It's more of a lot of the news that we get, a lot of the things that we see, even, you know, transparently, like the things within the news about accumulation and stuff like that, what's happening behind the scenes is far crazier than we could ever actually begin to imagine. Like, these numbers are completely possible. It's just a matter of time and accumulation and things like that. So yeah, very popular news. Michael Saylor talking about Bitcoin going to $8 million. And I mean, that's not even the craziest numbers that we've heard. We've seen multiple times people talking about a $15 million Bitcoin. I mean, a literal $100 million Bitcoin. Multiple people have said that this is meant to be, you know, a 2050, 2060 kind of time frame. But if the world keeps adopting Bitcoin and there's less and less created every 4 years, and we see that companies are holding hundreds of thousands and millions of Bitcoin, mathematically, at some point, we will reach those points because there's not a lot of it actually floating around. Also in the news, Bitcoin whales with over 10 Bitcoin have reached a 2-year high. On-chain data from Sentiment has revealed that wallets holding 10 or more Bitcoin have matched their holdings from 2 years ago. The Bitcoin price rally will begin after the Fed rate cuts resume, says an analyst. So this is two-pronged. There's a lot of whale news constantly, over and over. Today we're getting like a nice air quote here, smaller whale news. A lot of the time when we get Bitcoin whale news, it tends to be anyone holding from 100 and or starting at 1,000 Bitcoin plus and their movements within the market. People are looking at the actual information. I mean, just in general, anyone holding Bitcoin should be a part of this list, but people for some reason tend to do the higher valued wallets as seemingly more significant. So a lot of the metrics that we have right now are similar, if not exactly the same, if not higher than 2 years ago. For those of you who missed a couple of other videos, the numbers that we're hearing for whales, for accumulation, for the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges, and a couple of other things that aren't in my head right now, are matching the previous bull run, like the height of the previous bull run. So all metrics are a go. Everything is completely bullish. More Bitcoin gets taken off of exchanges. Bitcoin continues getting rarer. Even some days when we do have outflows from the ETFs, there's still tons of people buying. ETFs are constantly looked at as the only thing that we should be paying attention to. No, there are new Bitcoin addresses every single day. There are more and more people buying Bitcoin. Wallets holding 1 Bitcoin have reached a new all-time high. Wallets holding 10 plus Bitcoin continue to buy up more Bitcoin every day. Wallets holding over 1,000 Bitcoin are also buying up hundreds of Bitcoin every single day. The amount of Bitcoin that gets mined over the course of a 24-hour period is gone every single day. None of it's hitting the market. The only people who are selling are people who just got into the market, have smaller Bitcoin amounts. I see a lot of people on Twitter, and I also mimic this. There was a couple of accounts who were writing like, who's selling? Like who in their right mind is selling? But it's people who just got into the market, people who are frustrated, people who put more money into the market than they could literally afford to lose. Also, always do not only put money into this market that you can afford to lose. And I think some people keep forgetting that one thing. Anything you put into this market, if you wake up and the market is zero tomorrow, you should be able to skip down the street whistling. Only put into the market what you can afford to lose. Right. So the amount of people holding Bitcoin and holding a lot of Bitcoin also continues to rise. These numbers will probably continue going, and I don't want to use the word forever, but forever, if you will, especially as Bitcoin becomes more rare. The discussion of what's happening with the stock market, I think, was it the NASDAQ? I don't remember which one. One of them just hit a historical brand new all-time high. A lot of the news that we got years ago that I cautioned everyone about constantly, I kept on saying, I was like, so I'll put it to you this way. Years ago, we had news that whatever the Bitcoin futures were doing, that's what our prices had to do. And then that news evolved into whatever the stock market was doing. That's what our market had to do. This is some really, like, Bitcoin is meant to be inversely correlated to the stock market. That's just how it's always meant to have been. But as we continue to integrate into the old system a lot more, and we used to see, especially in 2020 and 2021, as the stock market was moving up, Bitcoin would also move up. If the stock market went down, Bitcoin would also move down. That was a huge topic of discussion years ago, where I remember being like, hey, this isn't supposed to be happening because Bitcoin is meant to. If we hear that the dollar is inflating, if we hear that currencies are in trouble, that's when Bitcoin typically goes up. But alas, so as the stock markets they're not all doing exceptionally great. But I believe the U.S. stock market just hit a brand new all-time high, and a lot of the tech stocks are doing really well. Nvidia continues to go up. All these kinds of things, anything having to do with AI is doing well. And therefore, the correlation is, well, if tech stocks are doing well and Bitcoin is technology, then therefore Bitcoin should, and it's those kinds of, it's not even reaching for straws. It's like reaching for blockchains kind of thing that I think the cryptocurrency market really needs to separate itself from, because people become addicted to the idea of, well, that's doing that, then we also have to do that as well. If you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Bitcoin price, expert foresees continued bull run despite a market, a $4 billion Bitcoin sell-off. I think people this is me. I mean, you're watching the channel, of course, this is all my opinion, but people are becoming way too wrapped up and enthralled in it's not a tiny thing. But if we have these sell-offs, it is a completely normal market function. If you have these companies, now you have to understand, these companies also understand supply and demand. Cool, got it. But they're working on a completely different level than many people can even conceptualize. What they're trying to constantly do is accumulate Bitcoin while also making tons of US dollars. It has to do with, when we talk about market manipulation, it's this in a nutshell. It's across every single market. This isn't simply crypto. You buy up a ton of an asset, you make the price go up, and you figure out how to sell it back onto the market to make several $100 million in profit. You wait for the price to go back down, you rebuy again. The problem is that the huge problem is that a lot of normal people try to do things like this. When it comes to the stock market, they try and time it. It doesn't work out for them. So what we're witnessing usually over and over when it comes to any kinds of sell-off is these people taking profits and making profits and then buying up the asset over again. And it's just this loop that kind of continues over and over. We've had this situation for years, but we have a lot of new people in the market who don't really understand. And I mean, once again, I am not a genius. I don't understand every single market dynamic, believe me. But we've gone through this many other times before. But now we've gotten to the point where we have so many new people in the market and or the expectations that anything that BlackRock does or anything that happens with the ETFs immediately has to have some kind of a positive and or negative consequence for our market. Once again, I know that I'm not the most viewed cryptocurrency channel, but it has to do with the same exact idea once again years ago of the futures. And now we have the same situation with the ETFs. People are always looking for a reason to give rich people so much more control over the market and or say whatever they do has to have some type of an immediate effect on us. We existed in a world for 14 and a half years where we didn't have ETFs. And now that we have them, which is supposed to be some opulently, beautifully, amazing, wonderful thing for the market, everyone panics the moment there's any kind of news about any kind of sell-off, regardless of the fact that a year and a half ago, Bitcoin was $15,000, and we're way higher than that currently right now. I see pessimism online. People are expecting Bitcoin to fall in price or have one last hurrah going down to 48,000. I wish I could comfort you and give you a blankie and tell you that's not going to happen. It's happened before. We've had it happen across multiple different market sessions and cycle. But the optimism remains. Oddly enough, there's still a lot of analysts out there, and everyone's projecting, foreseeing, and still foretelling the $100,000 Bitcoin. And I think a lot of the numbers that I'm seeing right now, people talking about 80,000, 82,000, and 86,000. These are constantly the numbers that people say if we reach those numbers, if we go past those numbers, well then, sky's the limit kind of thing. Ethereum is also in the news as well. The Ethereum network has witnessed a significant shift as the biggest holders, often referred to as whales, now possess an all-time high of $241 billion worth of Ether. According to the latest data from on-chain metrics from Sentiment, these 100 largest non-exchange Ethereum wallets collectively hold 68.39 million Ether. This spike in holdings marks an historic milestone, reflecting a possible strategic move among large investors to accumulate more Ether as market conditions evolve. Yeah, of course, what do you think they're doing? You're just buying for no reason. The speculation right now, at least at the time of me making this video, is that the SEC is going to give a thumbs up or has kind of insisted. A couple of days ago, Gary Gensler was in the news basically saying that he thinks that the ETFs are going to launch for Ethereum sometime in the summer. My prediction is end of summer. I don't trust Gary Gensler. That's not a joke. It's just, can we be completely honest with ourselves? So he said summer, so I'm like, cool, the very last day of summer. The analyst Eric Balchunas said also a couple of days ago that apparently, according to the way that it was worded and the way that applications have been flowing through the SEC, I believe you can see some of them online, is that all that's left is the S1 filings. And since those are being put in right now, they're being looked at apparently or something like that, then usually they'll be given the yay a week after, therefore giving us a date of the 2nd of July, according to Eric Balchunas, who I believe is an ETF analyst, so he probably knows what he's talking about. Therefore, 2nd of July for this to actually launch. We've had a lot of Ether whale news the last couple of weeks. It has not been as prevalent or as commonplace as Bitcoin whale news, but these people are trying to buy as much Ether as humanly possible. I believe there's currently, I think, 120 million Ether. I believe that's the number. There is an Ethereum burn, so new ether gets created, but the burn outpaces the actual amount of ether that also gets created. Therefore, the supply remains stable, as it were. So it makes sense completely that these wallets are now holding 68 million ether, more than half of the supply. A lot of people online, and I mean, it doesn't matter which coin. People tend to have a problem when a large amount of coins are in like a small amount of hands. But I've been through this so many times. I've been with my friends before. I was just chatting with one yesterday. And we were talking, like, it's these moments where you're like, oh, I got into this coin at X price. I wish I had gotten in when it was, 9,000 times cheaper, that kind of thing. These people have been accumulating for a very long time. This is what I always say, even with Michael Saylor talking about 2013, 2014 and being like, sadly, I only got in at 9,000 as opposed to being like, I got in at 9,000 as opposed to $58,000 per coin. It's that kind of thing. We've had whale accumulation for Ethereum for a number of years, especially when it came to light that you would need more ether to create more ether. We've had people buying up tons of ether since the actual merge. So I wish these coins were more evenly spread out across the planet. But when you have skepticism, when you have people who don't want to enter into our market, I know people who I've told, I'm like, I want you to invest. Like, I want you to get into the stock market, do something. Their skepticism level about the stock market is like, no, that's for suckers. Like, no, like that's just a place to lose money. So I'm like, would you feel more comfortable having your money in crypto? They look at me like I just told them, empty your bank account and throw it into the river. Like they can't conceptualize getting into our market. But it's the same exact thing. I forgot the name of the term, that people are only interested in things when it's completely far out of their reach. Is it Bevlin? Bevlin sounds like a water. Veblen. Is it Veblen? I don't remember exactly. Anyway, it's the same exact thing with people not wanting to get into Bitcoin when it's at 10,000, but rushing towards it when it gets to 70,000. So we will have this. It'll just be a continuous thing over and over. The issue being is that there are people who do pay attention. There are people who got ether when it was $300. They saw it go to 3,000 and they said, okay, the ETFs are coming. So we know that we have to make sure to like continuously accumulate more. There was someone a couple of days ago who said by the 2030s, he's expecting a $100,000, a $150,000 ether. There are people who do pay attention, and it usually tends to be people who already have tons of money. And it's this cycle over and over and over. So, I mean, this was also years ago. I mean, this was 2017, 18, 19. There was so much news as prices were dropping. And I remember it was a really intense time in the market. As prices were dropping in the cryptocurrency space, we were getting tons of accumulation news. Tons of people were buying Bitcoin. And we collectively could not understand how so much accumulation was happening, but the prices just kept on dropping over and over and over. Now, that's, market dynamics, what have you. But these people saw the potential and they were buying up tons of Bitcoin. So when everyone else is completely terrified, these people are buying and buying and buying and buying and buying. Bitcoin goes up to 70,000 and we start getting news that there's a whole bunch of new Bitcoin billionaires. The last 2 or 3 years, prices were falling. And we continuously had news on this channel about whales who were buying every single day. Always buying. Prices are going down. This wallet's buying 100 Bitcoin per day. This wallet just bought 7,000 Bitcoin. We have no idea who it belongs to. And people started looking into it and they saw like the actual cryptocurrency exchange wallets and they were like, nope, these coins don't belong to them. These are, I mean, and I dare not say everyday people buying Bitcoin, but you understand, like, they're not an exchange. And it's the same exact thing. We're seeing a higher concentration of crypto into the hands of people who've just been buying and buying and buying and buying, and they will continue holding and they'll continue buying. And then at some point, if we do have another cycle and we get to the point, end of 2025, prices have slid back down again, people will sell and these companies will continue buying. And then in 2050, 2060, we're going to have it in the news that, 300 companies own 70-80% of all the Bitcoin, and people will go, oh, that's unfair. And it's like, well, what were you doing before? I try to be nice to like have a lot of friends who invest. Hello, if you're listening and watching. But other people, I try and tell them, almost like babying them. I'm like, what do you think is going to happen in the future? You know that your pension is not going to like sustain you. You see prices right now. What do you think inflation is going to be in the year 2033? I'm not asking you to throw all your money into crypto, but invest in something. I don't really. I have so many other things. I'm like, okay, cool. You have so many other things that you have to worry about, and you're missing the one main worry in your life. I saw a news report discussing people in America and their lack of savings and how they just haven't saved. These news reports are so common, and they keep asking people on the street or in other situations in the studio or wherever they're asking them, and they keep saying they don't have enough money. They have so many other things to worry about. Their friends are going out to parties, or the friends are going on vacation, and it's like people continuously always forget to look ahead to the future. And there are a sliver of people who are buying up all the assets. So part of that news story as well, it was meant to be, I want to use the word negative, where they were saying, these young people have no assets, and so and so and so, and the people who have all the assets are the people who already have the money. They're buying up all the homes, they're buying up all the stocks, they're buying up all, and I was like, yeah, of course, because they understand the actual power of money. They understand what money has gotten them before. So they understand, if I have more of it, I can do more of these amazing, wonderful things in the future. And you have a lot of people who just don't care or aren't looking towards the future. So they end up getting left behind. It's a constant cycle over and over and over. How many of you, show of hands, have family members who have never invested, never got into any market, have no interest in getting into any market? And I'll even expand on that back into the 90s. How many of you had families who could have been buying stocks and stuff like that when you were much younger, but they didn't? What about in the 1980s? Were they investing? No. Asset prices in the 70s were like dust. They were nothing compared to what they are now. So it's the same exact thing. As the 70s became the 80s, became the 90s, became the 2000s, even more so if you want to go back to 2001, talking about, the valuation of Amazon and all these other companies. We're in 2024. What's the asset valuation of Bitcoin and Ethereum and of stocks and of homes in 2030, in 2038, in 2055? And then you have people in 2055. Well, it's not fair. They're holding all the assets, and it's like, were the asset valuations in the 2070s, in the 2090s? You have to invest. You have to do something. Of course, these people are buying up all the crypto. This is the conversation that we're always having when it comes to Bitcoin. Of course, they own over 1 million Bitcoin in the ETFs. They've looked at the numbers. They've looked at the charts. They go, okay, if we're at this number right now and the accumulation continues, we're going to get to a $300,000 Bitcoin. And then they go, well, if we're at a $300,000 Bitcoin in 2027, where are we in 2035? Okay, our charts are showing a $1.2 million Bitcoin. Where is it showing it in 2050? Okay, it's at $38,000 right now. We have to buy as much as humanly possible. Of course, they're buying up all the assets. Of course, they're buying up all the homes. Of course, the people who hold the most stocks are buying up all the stocks. It's the same exact thing I told you before. There's a guy and his family who own, they're believed to own over 1,000 Warhols. The guy, so he's given some, what do you call it, interviews before. He was saying in the 1980s, he saw that Warhol was really popular, and he was like, I think this guy's popularity is only going to continue to rise. He started buying paintings and stuff like that from Andy Warhol as much as he could. In the late 80s, I believe it was, when Warhol passed, he was like, no, like we need to buy as many as we possibly can. So I've seen documentaries before about this guy where people are like, it's kind of unfair that he controls the market, and it's like, other people had that same exact opportunity. This guy sat down with his family and made it, and he was like, no, we are going to buy this one particular artist as much as we possibly can. So I'm sure there are families out there, right? I'm certain there are families out there who don't have, tons and tons and tons of money, but they're like, We're going to pool our money together, and every single month we're going to buy Bitcoin. We're going to buy as much Bitcoin as we can. We're going to stop, spending frivolously. We're going to keep buying. It's like, what was that other family from years ago? They're not in the news as much anymore. I think they were called the Bitcoin family. I think they were from the Netherlands. They were relatively popular years ago. They had a YouTube channel. I mean, it sounded crazy back then, but this guy basically, I think what did he do? He moved his family or something. I forgot where they moved. Maybe Bali? I don't remember. He moved his family, sold all their stuff, and bought Bitcoin. And I think Bitcoin was like several $100s. Anyway, went off on a complete tangent, but yeah, of course these people are holding all the assets. They've been buying for 15 years all these different coins. But yes, the whales continue. So I am trying to be optimistic when it comes to the actual when the ETFs are going to be launched, and when they are launched, what will happen to prices. I think we're going to see a much larger increase in Ethereum than in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has a larger market cap and therefore it is more difficult to move. Ethereum doesn't have as much market cap as Bitcoin and not as much liquidity, if you will. So any type of a huge buying pressure will also cause the price of Ethereum to rise a lot faster, which is also then absolutely wonderful for every other altcoin out there as well. And also in the news, to tie it all together, same exact thing, I believe it was this one, right? I don't remember. It was one of these articles. The idea of Fed rate cuts. For some reason, everyone is continuously adamant that the Fed is going to cut interest rates sometime this year. I'm not holding my breath either anymore. We heard summer 2023, for those of you who were not here, summertime, from JP Morgan, from Fidelity, from BlackRock, you name it. Every single person went on to CNBC and they said that over the course of 2024, there would be 4 different interest rate cuts, one for each season. The Fed has continuously not cut interest rates because they know that they can't. Because the moment they cut interest rates, inflation will go back up, more debt will pile up. It's just they got themselves and us in this situation, and they can't really back out of it now. This is why you keep seeing, if inflation goes from 3.4% to 3.3, they're like high-fiving each other, saying that they've done something great. And it's like, no, inflation is a lot higher than 3%, but also I digress. So now we have a lot of people in the Senate and in Congress and in other, you name it, across the United States who are now calling for the Fed to lower interest rates because jobs are disappearing and these companies aren't doing well. So when you see them posting record profits, it's because they're firing people. That's how it always works. The way that you as a company can show your shareholders that you're doing well is you have to fire a couple hundred people. Because if you have 700 people who were making 80,000 per year, you multiply those together and you go, see, we saved a couple $1 million, and then your stock price goes up. That's literally how it works. The problem is that we are in a very tight corner. The economies aren't doing well. The stock market is not an indication of how well an economy is doing. GDPs are falling. Interest rates, other countries are trying to lower their interest rates. It's not doing a lot. There's not a lot of money flowing into their markets. Everyone's just looking for what's happening with the US dollar and the US interest rates. The problem is the Fed keeps saying that they're not going to lower interest rates as long as inflation keeps dropping by 0.1%. And now we're at the point where everyone's talking about, okay, maybe there'll be a Fed rate cut in December. And it's like, stop holding your breath. These people are not going to do it because it's not because they're trying to save the economy or save the world. Like they've ruined it. They've destroyed everything. Like it's really bad and they can't really fix it. So inflation is not going down. Things continue to get more expensive. The moment they announce that they're cutting interest rates, people will begin to take out huge amounts of debt all over again. More money will be printed, more debt will be created than can actually be paid back. And it puts us back into this loop once again. As more money gets created, inflation then goes back up. Like this is literally how it works. So yeah, and the optimism there is that people assume that if there is a Fed rate cut, the stock market will pump even more than it already is right now. And then crypto will pump. More money flows into the market, inflation goes up, every asset goes up, you get the generalized idea. So this is now the current discussion once again, that the Fed is still going to cut interest rates, and they might do it in autumn, or they might do it in winter, or they might do it in December. And at this point, it's kind of like I'm shrugging. You can't see me. I don't really care. And I think the market shouldn't care. It's another one of those things that we keep getting pushed into the corner, being told that our market can only do X, Y, and Z if this one event takes place. We're not looking at the accumulation. We're not looking at the amount of Bitcoin being taken off of exchanges. We're not looking at the whales. We're not looking at any level of accumulation that's happening around the world. That's not just for ETFs. It's constantly, well, Bitcoin won't move unless we have lower interest rates. Well, Bitcoin's not going to move unless we have $800 million per day worth of inflows. And it's like, no, we did it before. We're going to do it again. It's just supply and demand. So, yes, very big crypto news constantly. Always talking about interest rates. I was going to say, I wonder if there's ever going to be a time where our market isn't at the behest of every other market. But I think it's just normal market dynamics and the way that the world works. People will always look for a line, something connecting us to something else, saying that this is the only way that we can manage or survive. Yeah, I do think that's going to do it for this video. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.